Isquith here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
All right, Monday, November 9. Hello, everybody. Hope you had a great weekend and ready to dive full bore into the big news of the week. And today, Monday, looking at you on Free Speech TV and on TawkrTV. Hello, hello, hello. Good to have you with us. Got lots to talk about. President Obama, he made it official finally on Friday. If Keystone wasn't dead before, it is dead now, the president's saying. He agreed with the State Department. There is no sense in approving this project because it would not create any jobs, many jobs at least, handful of jobs. It would not help the economy, and it would interfere with our move to do something about climate change and to move full bore into renewable energy. Keystone, dead. President Obama at the White House today welcoming, if that's the word, at least meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. Relations between the two men, of course, are fairly cool. They got ice cold after Bibi Netanyahu came in what is still one of the biggest faux pas ever created by any world leader, came in and spoke to the United States Congress, addressed a joint session of Congress, attacking the President of the United States over the Iran nuclear deal. Nonetheless, President Obama has agreed to see him today at the White House. But the two of them will not hold a joint news conference, which is a sure sign that they still don't get along. We saw Donald Trump scripted on Saturday Night Live. Well, just proves he's a lot better when he's unscripted as he is on the campaign trail. And Ben Carson's script, it turns out, is nothing but one whole string of lies, from West Point to the Yale Daily News to stabbing somebody to ostensibly pretending to hide some students and protect them from the Martin Luther King riots. It's all one big pack of lies. Time to boot Ben Carson off the stage. And time for you to give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Good to see you on Monday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house.
So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Well, if Keystone wasn't dead before, it sure is now. President Obama making it official on Friday. Hello, everybody. Happy Monday, November 9. So good to see you. Hope you had a great weekend. It was a nice fall weekend. It was absolutely summer here in Washington, D.C. Whoa, just about 80 degrees on yesterday and maybe Friday, too.
Friday, for sure. Friday it was like 82 degrees.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. We made the most of it, of course. Hope you did, too. And a big thanks to friend Bill Clinton Yates for being here on Friday. Bill Press and friends coming to you live coast to coast from our nation's capital. Good to see you on your local progressive talk radio station this Monday. How are you? And good to see you on Free Speech TV and on our video stream, TawkrTV. However you join us, thanks for being part of the program, and look forward to hearing your comments about Keystone Pipeline, about Donald Trump on Saturday Night Live, about President Obama's meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu today at the White House, and about, of course, about Ben Carson. Can't wait to find out what the latest lie is today, or maybe just wild exaggeration, whatever we want to call it. Of course, we're picking on him like nobody ever picked on Barack Obama. No, he's the first candidate that we've ever asked tough questions about. Yeah, do you ever see such a bunch of crybabies in your whole life as this bunch of Republicans? They cry about the debate. They cry about questions there. They cry about questions on the campaign trail. Grow up, you know? Yeah. As Harry Truman said, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Certainly get out of politics. How about it? Look who the cat dragged in this morning. Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson made it through the weekend.
With that introduction.
That's my favorite type of introduction.
Hi, Bill.
Hello.
Happy Monday.
Yeah, right. Ray Rogers here to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Bolding on the job as our videographer, of course. The big letdown. I mean, you know, unscripted Donald Trump is worth watching, right?
Yeah.
Scripted, you knew it was going to bomb, and it did. I mean, they're bragging about the fact they had 6.6 million viewers.
Yeah.
Which I guess it's not a record high for SNL, but
it's
a big number.
It's the most they've had in like 4 years, I think.
Is that right?
Yeah.
But
you're right. It didn't break any records.
I mean, 24 million people watched the first Fox debate, right?
Right.
So figure, right? And if you expected the show to bomb, it really did, I think. I mean, what I saw, I didn't have to watch the whole thing, but the clips that I saw of Donald Trump, he wasn't funny. He's funny when he's unscripted because he's wild.
The thing about Trump is a very good entertainer, and he knows what good TV is, right? So when he does his stuff on TV, it's always just pure, unfiltered Trump. That's what The Apprentice was, which had great ratings. That's what the debates are, which are getting great ratings.
Yeah.
So when you put him in front of a thing and try to make him be funny, it stinks to high heaven.
The funniest part of Saturday Night Live was Larry David again playing Bernie Sanders in their little mock-up of the Friday night Democratic debate.
We need to rebuild our nation's infrastructure. It's crumbling.
That's why I no longer drive on bridges or through tunnels. I won't do it, Rachel. It's too risky. Instead, I keep a kayak strapped to the top of my car. Whenever I get to a bridge, I park, abandon my car, and paddle to the other side. So if you ever see a soaking wet man pulling a kayak out of a river and screaming about bridges, give him a hand, because he's your next president.
Could be Bernie. Could be Bernie. You can see Bernie with his kayak on his car.
Pretty good.
You know, in Vermont. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Great. Larry David. So we got reporters in from Salon Magazine, from The Hill, from Politico today. And our favorite banker, Keith Mestrich from Amalgamated Bank, will be in as well. And yeah, Ben Carson, String of Lies. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. First of all, Bill, let's go to California, where there is a proposed ballot initiative that will lower the minimum legal drinking age in California to 18 years old. It has been cleared to begin collecting signatures, according to the California Secretary of State. Now, if it receives the amount of signatures that it needs, it'll be on the November 16 ballot, so we will see whether or not they'll be able to lower the drinking age to 18 in California.
Whoa.
What do you think about that, Mr. California?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, Mr. California, I'm going to have to vote on that if it makes the ballot. There's a long way between getting signatures and getting on the ballot and then getting passed.
They had a big hurdle of whether or not they'd even allow it to be proposed, right? Like if you get the signatures, whether or not it would even go anywhere. But they've crossed that hurdle. But you're right, it's still got a long way to go.
I probably would vote for it.
I think that's right.
There's just not that much difference.
No,
look, if you could serve in the military, you can go kill for your country, you deserve a drink.
No,
right?
that's my thought too.
Yeah, I'm with you. Speaking of Larry David, during the Donald Trump monologue, towards the end, we heard someone shouting the words, "You're racist! You're racist!" It's clearly part of a bit that they had done with Larry David, who was sort of standing off to the side. Now, this is all part of Deport Racism, a Latino advocacy group that had offered $5,000 to anyone in the audience who disrupted Donald Trump to shout out that he is racist. They got ahead of the curve and let Larry David do it himself. They tweeted and said Larry David wins the $5,000 bounty from deportracism.com. No word yet from David as to whether or not he's going to accept that money.
Oh, the group is going to give him the money?
They said they're going to give him the money. They said promise made. They want to keep that promise. So now this is a cool story, Bill. Have you ever been to Petco Park in San Diego? Where the Padres play?
Oh, yeah. I didn't know the name of the park. Oh, yeah, a couple of times.
Yeah, it's Petco Park.
It's a great stadium.
Right, it's a really cool stadium. And now that baseball is over, World Series are finished, what they've done with Petco Park is they've turned it into the links at Petco Park. They have turned it into a golf course.
What?
Inside the stadium.
A little three.
It is a 10-hole golf course. A 10-hole golf course. And you can play. You tee off from all around the stadium, right? You tee off at home plate to start, and then you go all over the stadium, right? Different areas. And that's one of the ways that they're going to make money in the off season, right? Which is a little harder to do in stadiums like here in Washington D.C., where it's going to be freezing cold here in a couple of weeks.
Right.
But in San Diego, they don't have that problem.
Must be a little par 3 kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not long at all, but it's certainly unconventional. But they figured out a way to make it work.
Good for them.
Is there a driving range?
There is a driving range too, so you can
that'd be really cool from like the top of the seats.
That's what you do. You get up at the top of the stadium, right? You tee off from there, and it just goes flying out into the ball.
That's exciting.
Oh, cool.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah,
I love that idea.
Damn, I wish I'd known that I was in San Diego.
Oh man,
yeah.
By the way, good luck. It's booked up until the beginning of baseball season.
Of course, I'll bet.
You can't get a ticket. That's it. That's
all
I got. Come on, Jamie, get me out of here.
Yeah. That sounder. Yes, indeed. Kid's got a girl in the job.
It's Monday.
That's true.
That's true, right? Indeed, I got to tell you. So the what is it? 4th Republican debate is tomorrow night. Okay, here's my question to you. Come on, let's get into it. 866-55-PRESS. Isn't it time to just boot Ben Carson off the stage? Okay, can we just say goodbye, Ben? Okay. 866-55-PRESS. Look, We knew the guy had little experience in politics. That's okay. But we didn't realize he has little experience telling the truth either. I mean, his entire campaign is one cascade of lies. And it's just getting to be embarrassing day after day after day. And we remember how it started out, right? First of all, let's remember, I mentioned this last week, that the way Ben Carson became the favorite of the religious right is he writes this book, Gifted Hands, and in which he says, boy, I turned to Jesus. Here's what Jesus came to me, Jesus saved me. I turned to Jesus when I was wanted to go to medical school, and I had to pass this big chemistry exam, and I hadn't studied for it. And I went to bed the night before just really, really nervous, really scared, and I had a dream about this creature, this angel, that showed up in my dream and started writing on a blackboard. And I realized, oh my God, I better pay attention to this. And he wakes up and he writes down on a notepad all the questions that this angel was writing on the blackboard. And it turns out that they were the very same questions that were on the chemistry exam the next day.
How about
and
that?
He aced the exam and he got into medical school. Thank you, Jesus. Does anybody believe that load of crap? Yeah. Too many people did. And they sort of made a hero out of him. Oh, my God. God wanted him to be a surgeon. Jesus wanted him to be a surgeon. Jesus sent the angel to save him. A bunch of as phony as anything I ever heard, right? But that's what his whole career sort of is based on. Now people have started looking into this Gifted Hands. Various media outlets have done. And it turns out that nothing this guy has said about his life is true. All right. Okay. He's married. He's got a wife. Okay, that's fine. He was a brain surgeon one time. Yes, he was. And a good one. Okay? But everything else is not true. I mean, starting with, remember, the first thing that came out is Politico did a whole investigation into his statement that he was offered, he was such a good ROTC student, he was offered a scholarship. He had dinner with General William Westmoreland, who commanded our troops in Vietnam. And at the end of the dinner, Westmoreland offered him a full scholarship to West Point. And
which, by the way, has been a big part of his story. He's written in his book. He talks about it often.
He could have gone to West Point. In fact, he was given a full scholarship to West Point.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out, not true. West Point does not offer scholarships. He did not apply to West Point. He was not admitted to West Point. Somebody might have said to him, now is what they're sort of saying, you know what, you ought to think about going to West Point and we could probably get you in, right? But that's not offered a full scholarship to West Point. So at best, his stories are wild exaggerations.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a story about, I love this one, about stabbing somebody. Okay, he insists he had such a violent temper. He was a mean SOB when he was little, right?
Oh yeah, man.
He stabbed a friend of his and would have killed him, except the belt buckle stopped the knife, and he wanted to hit his mother in the head with a hammer. And so CNN went out and they interviewed 9 different people, friends of his, relatives of his, classmates of his, all the way back to elementary school, and nobody remembered Ben Carson ever having a temper or never getting mad or being angry.
I mean,
None.
Can you imagine him doing that? I mean, when you hear him talk and he talks like this,
yeah.
Can you imagine him?
And then Ben Carson says, "Oh yes, I did. Oh yes, I did." So like basically he's saying, "No, I wanted to stab somebody. I stabbed somebody. That's why you should vote for me for president." He insists that he did stab somebody, and he insists that he did want to hit his mother in the head with a hammer.
Yeah.
Damn it, believe me. I wanted to hit my mother in the head with a sledgehammer. Yeah. And as to... so now he's meeting with reporters on Friday and now says, oh, this West Point thing, they're taking it all out of context.
They were saying you would be a tremendous addition to the military, and we can get you into West Point with a full scholarship. And I simply said, I want to be a doctor. I really appreciate it. I'm very flattered. And I moved on. So it didn't go on any further than that.
Yeah. Again, he's waffling. He's changing his story. He told, in his book, he says he was offered a full military scholarship to West Point. He was not. They do not give them. And so Carson again says, "Oh, they're just piling on the critics. They just, they're getting desperate."
They have been talking to everybody I've ever known, everybody I've ever seen. There's got to be a scandal. There's got to be some nurse he's having an affair with. There's got to be something. What? They are getting desperate.
Yeah. Nobody's talking about his sex life.
No, of course not.
No. Yeah. And they're not getting desperate. They're doing their job. So Carson says, now watch what. Let's see what comes out next. Right?
Next week, it'll be my kindergarten teacher who said I peed in my pants. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But it's okay because I totally expect it.
No. I'll tell you what is next, all right? Next was he said that he won the prize for being the most honest student at Yale. And his picture was on the front page of the Yale Daily News as the most honest student in Yale because because of this one class, okay? Well, they checked with the Yale Daily News. They went back. They looked in the archives. There is no copy, no edition of the Yale Daily News where Ben Carson was, number one, named the most honest student, number two, the best in this particular class, and number three, his picture was never on the front page of the school newspaper.
That is one of the most beautiful lies I've ever heard. You lied about being the most honest.
His pants.
Yeah, right.
No, it says, you
lied about being the most honest.
Right.
This is amazing.
And then there's another story that has now come out in the book again. People keep finding these things. That in Detroit, when the Martin Luther King riots were taking place, that Ben Carson, as a student, sheltered white students so they wouldn't get beat up in a school lab. And again, I think this was the Wall Street Journal. There's also on this case. It went back and they talked to people, and nobody there had any recollection of this at all whatsoever.
So
I mean, the lies just go on and on and on. I have a question. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back and tell you more lies. Is it time to just boot Ben Carson off the stage and say, come on, Ben, you can't lie your way into the White House? Don't you think Republicans ought to be booting off the stage? 866-55-PRESS.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 27 minutes after the hour here on the Bill Press Show with Republicans lining up tomorrow night for their next debate and a lot of questions about Ben Carson. Is it fair to examine his life story? After all, he laid it out there. Carson says the media is just picking on him, unlike they picked on anybody else. Mike out in Kansas City. Hey, Mike, what do you say?
Good morning, Master Sergeant Mike here. I just want to say that, well, yes, he should probably drop out, but the Republican strategy has always been built on tell a lie, repeat it over and over again,
right?
And people will believe it. It is a Machiavellian theme. It is ridiculous. But the American people have got to wake up and read their history.
Well, you know, Mike, though, it may have caught up with Ben Carson, right, in this case.
I was raised in the Pentecostal church, so I know what a kerfuffle that is. What brainwashing goes into that whole stereotype. It's stereotypical brainwashing. But thanks, man.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Mike. Thanks. Good to hear from you. You know, more on the other side. But we haven't even talked about Popeyes yet, right?
The Popeyes organization?
Oh, yeah.
The Popeyes organization?
The Popeyes organization, where the vegetarian, right, goes in for dinner, and the guy comes in with a gun, sticks a gun in his ribs, and Carson says, oh, no, you don't want to shoot me. I think you want to shoot that guy behind the counter.
Baltimore police have no record of that incident.
No record at all of that incident. Mm-hmm. And how about the pyramids? Ben Carson, time to go.
This
More on the other
is
side.
the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist of popular paper is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I could just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earth-alleluia.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV, this is the Bill Press Show.
All right, it's 33 minutes after the hour. This is Monday, November 9, and coast to coast, we are here with you in every nook and cranny of the United States of America. Here with you on the radio, here with you, on television as well. Talking about Ben Carson and the string of lies that appears to be catching up with him. We mentioned the one about West Point, the one about his chemistry exam, the one about protecting people from the Martin Luther King riots, the one about his violent temper, stabbing a friend whom he refuses to name, and wanting to beat his mother in the head with a sledgehammer, and all of those, and then the Popeyes. How about the pyramids, right? The pyramid. But it turns out, so anyhow, what Ben Carson says is the pyramids had nothing to do. Archaeologists are wrong. All this talk about these were the tombs for the Egyptian kings, wrong. The pharaohs, wrong. No, they were storage bins, if you will, built silos for grain. Yes, right. But I didn't realize this is based on a literal reading of the book of Genesis.
Oh, wow.
Where Joseph was told that a drought was coming, right? And they would be without crops or without food, maybe. It would be tough, right? And so they should store up some grain ahead of time.
Oh, wow.
To get ready for the drought, right? And so that's what they did, and they built these pyramids. So it's anyhow.
Jeez.
Totally nuts. But Ben Carson, again, in response, says, and again, my question to you is, isn't it time don't you think the Republican Party should just politely say, thanks, Ben, but why don't you go back to Baltimore, right? Just get off the stage. 866-55-PRESS. Let's hear from you on this, Peter.
On that point, we're on Twitter at BP Show. Mark from Chicago weighs in, says, really, when has lying ever disqualified a Republican from anything? This is their bread and butter. And also, I want to point out...
It is, but I think in this case, it's just gone a little too far.
Too far. Also, all the other weird things about Ben Carson, I just retweeted something from our friend NC Nomad that has a look at all of the different artwork that Dr. Carson has up around his house. It's a weird museum dedicated to himself, with photos or paintings of him with Jesus Christ, and a lot of just go look at it. We're at BP Show on Twitter. Take a look at that link.
You just read that. Okay. But so Carson's defense, again, number one, he blames the media. Of course, that's the Republican playbook, right? Blame the media. The media are just out to get him. And here's what I love. They never asked questions like this about Barack Obama.
I do not remember this level of scrutiny for one President Barack Obama when he was running. In fact, I remember just the opposite. I remember people just, we won't really talk about that. We won't talk about that relationship.
He is out of his freaking mind. I mean, do we forget Bill Ayers palling around with terrorists? I mean, how much stuff was made about the Bill Ayers, the fact that Obama was in his house for a fundraiser, former weatherman? Do we forget about Jeremiah Wright? I mean, that dominated questions about Jeremiah Wright and Obama's relationship with him and how many times he'd been to church and whether he was in church on that particular Sunday or not. And the fact that Jeremiah Wright married Michelle and Barack. I mean,
the president had to come out and give a whole speech.
Yeah, right.
Based on that,
right. And do we forget? I mean, how about the birth certificate?
Oh my God!
That didn't start when he was in the White House. That started during the campaign. Yeah. They posted the electronic version of the birth certificate on the campaign website because people were saying Barack Obama, the whole thing, right? Born in Kenya, no, born in Indonesia. I mean, born in Hawaii. Hawaii wasn't a state. Yes, it was at the time. I mean, the whole thing, all of that. Barack Obama, I mean, they hounded him. And at one point, Carson said, Bill Clinton didn't have this kind of scrutiny. Oh, really? Hello, Jennifer Flowers? Do we forget? I mean, yes, it's just crazy.
Yeah. I mean, Barack Obama is still fighting rumors from wackos.
Yeah.
About, his college grades. Why won't he release his college transcripts?
Yeah, right.
Who has ever done that?
Yeah. I mean, I remember, I wrote my last book. I wrote a whole book
of course.
About the attacks on Obama called The Obama Hate Machine, right? I mean, and seriously, I did the research on it. No president, in my research, no president since Abraham Lincoln has had the kind of personal attacks against him, leveled against him, against Barack Obama since Abraham Lincoln. Yeah. So come on, Ben Carson, stop whining, and start splaining.
Yeah,
he's got some splaining to do.
Yeah,
yeah. And you
can't just say when you get caught in a lie, oh, this is the media coming after me. What do you? I mean, no.
You know
why
what?
did you say you were voted most honest in a superlative that doesn't exist?
Right. You can say it. Right.
Yeah.
If you're a brain surgeon and you want to ride that little glory train and give speeches around the country and make all kinds of money, you can lie as long as the day is long, right? But if you're running for president of the United States, you got to expect people are going to kick the tires. They're going to look into every one of those claims. And so far, everything this man has said about his life, other than the fact, again, I repeat, that he does have a wife and he was a brain surgeon, everything else has proven to be not true. John, down in Crawford, Tennessee. Hello, John. What's your take?
My take is this is nothing new, and then as I told your caller, screener that in 1932, President Roosevelt, as he was running for president, told us that the four horsemen of the GOP are destruction, delay, deceit, and despair.
Whoa. I hadn't heard that before, John. Yeah, I
FDR
thought I knew.
in 32 when he ran for president the first time.
I thought I knew FDR pretty well. That's great. Well, hey, nothing has changed, John, right?
No, sir. And since y'all are in D.C., I wanted to ask y'all a question. Have you ever seen Marsha Blackburn and Kathleen Parker in the same room?
Oh, you think they're the same person?
Oh, man.
Hey, thanks, John. That's good. That's sort of an inside baseball joke.
That's awfully inside, but yeah. That's a good one.
By the way, I'll tell you who I haven't seen in a while is Michelle Bachmann.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she pops up this morning.
She sure does.
On the Huffington Post, where she said that she claims that the reason there's violence in Israel today is because Jesus is coming soon.
That's right. Here he comes.
Yep, that's right. Michelle Bachmann. God love her. God bless her.
God bless her heart. Well, I do miss her. I mean, I will be honest. I do miss her. She was just one of the craziest people we've ever talked about on the show.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And
she gave us lots of ammunition. Right.
Former frontrunner for the GOP nomination, by the way.
Please. So, Ben Carson, we'll just have to see. I really do think it's at the point where the Republican Party has got to say, hey, we have our credibility is worth something. Our reputation is worth something. We can't have the great prevaricator be the nominee for the Republican Party. But the fact is, at this moment, he has finally overtaken Donald Trump in Iowa, right? And the voters of Iowa say that the thing they like most about Ben Carson is the fact that he has zero experience in politics.
Yeah.
Right. I would like to ask one of those voters, if your son or daughter, God forbid, ever had a brain tumor, right? Would you go to somebody who had zero experience in brain surgery to operate on your son or daughter?
That's an excellent question.
I think not, right? So, I mean, let's just apply the same standards to the presidency of the United States that we would apply to our own health care or the health care of someone else we love. And also, I don't think it's asking too much for somebody who's running for public office. Maybe one little lie, but a whole lifetime of lies?
Right.
No. Can't trust the guy. When we come back, we're going to check in with Elias Isquith from Salon magazine, who's got a lot, been covering this political trail as well, and will bring us up to date on the other side here at 866-55-PRESS.
Your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is The Bill Press Show.
I am your toilet. So how do you do? I take away your wee and the odd number 2. For a quiet moment, I'll always be there, bringing you troubles. You don't even have to care. Oh, think about the things you put me through. Things you put me through that I've been through you. Stuff from your body I'll happily take. Liquid or solid, whatever you make. When you think of all the things that I do, it's time to say thanks to your Lou. If I wasn't there anymore, you can only imagine disaster. I am a lifesaver, and that is not a lie. Where I don't exist, thousands die. So next time you have to do a poo or a wee, thank the sanitary saints that you have me. When you think of all the things that I do, it's time to say thanks to your Lou. La 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 la. It's time to say thank you to your Lou.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To
not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go now, 13 minutes before the top of the hour. Can you believe it? Election Day 2016 is just a year away. In fact, a year minus 1 day.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it is 364 days until we move into vote.
Do you know how fast that year is going to go by the way? It's going to fly by.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm already sick of this campaign. I wish the damn election were tomorrow, right? It's Tuesday. Why can't we have it tomorrow?
That's a good point, Bill.
What's going to change between now and then?
That's a very good point.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Forget the primaries. Just have the election tomorrow. Get it over with. Move on, right?
Democracy be damned.
But a lot of people are saying that there were some lessons to be learned last Tuesday, in these off-year elections that might have an impact on 2016. Among them, Elias Isquith from Salon magazine, Salon.com, who's been taking a particular look at the Kentucky governor's race. Elias joins us on our news line this Monday. Hey, Elias, good to talk to you again.
Hey, thanks for having me on again.
What do we know about this guy, Matt Bevin, new governor of Kentucky?
Let's put it this way. He ran against Mitch McConnell because he thought this was in the 2014 primary.
Right.
He thought Mitch McConnell was much too far to the left. So that's how far right Matt Bevin is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is all relative, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, he's very right-wing. He's so right-wing that even in Kentucky, people kind of thought he wasn't going to win.
Even Republicans thought, right? Republicans thought
exactly. Republicans thought he was too extreme for Kentucky.
So he's
very much in the sort of Tea Party mold of small or anti-government mixed with, religious fundamentalism.
So was it seriously, was it a surprise that somebody like that could win in Kentucky?
So the polls leading up to the vote showed the Democratic nominee Jack Conway, who had run against Rand Paul, and is kind of perennially trying to reach higher office in Kentucky. He was slightly ahead, so I suppose it was a bit of a surprise. But to be honest, I don't think it was that shocking. This is Kentucky, and it speaks to some of the bigger problems that Democrats are having, which, as you said, show up in these off-year elections where. It's a few things, but one of the big things is they can't get out the vote. And I think you're seeing to some degree as well, you saw it in Kentucky, that even when Obamacare is successful, because our elections have become so nationalized and because Obama himself is such a divisive the name itself is so divisive at this point that you see people who are benefiting from the program, either they don't know they're benefiting from the program or they think it doesn't impact their vote. The Democrats were hoping that the success of Obamacare in Kentucky was going to bring voters out to help Conway because Bevin has promised to basically, well, he's a little squishy on Medicaid. You know, the state expanded Medicaid, and he can't make up his mind about whether he promised to repeal that expansion entirely or to ask for a waiver from the federal government to sort of tinker and make it more, quote-unquote, market-friendly. All those kind of, raising fears about what he was going to do to what was pretty successful Obamacare in Kentucky didn't bring people out, and he won.
Well, I think it shows trouble for both parties, actually. I mean, certainly for the Republican Party, it shows that they cannot shake their Tea Party brand, right? I mean, and we're seeing that at the national level as well, right? Either the Tea Party or the outside brand. But I guess what I'm saying is the Republican establishment, which opposed Matt Bevin in the primary, right? They lost. They lost big time.
Yeah, they did. To some degree, I think that has to do with politics in Kentucky, the Republican Party in Kentucky. It has to do with Matt Bevin having run already. He made a lot of important and substantial connections with the conservative movement. But you're absolutely right. I mean, he represents a strain within the broader kind of right wing in America right now that they've succeeded in moving the Republican Party for the most part. The quote-unquote establishment is basically with them on policy at this point.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Freedom Caucus in Washington. They're running the show. I mean, they...
Yes, exactly.
They accept
and if Bevin was in Congress, he would probably be, one of the leaders of the Freedom Caucus.
Oh, he'd be the speaker. Are you kidding? Right.
Yeah.
And you're right. And on the Democratic Party, I mean, Connect, as they called it.
Right.
You're absolutely right. Was the most successful and the best state exchange in the entire country for Obamacare. We've talked about it often with John Yarmouth from Kentucky, frequent guest on the program. And yet, in effect, the voters of Kentucky rejected it, didn't they? What's going to happen to it? What has Bevin said?
Well, so one thing he said he's going to do is he says he's going to get rid of it. He's going to move everybody in Kentucky who's part of the state-level exchange to a federal exchange. Which, it's not hypocritical towards his broader goal of sort of undoing the Affordable Care Act, but it is somewhat ironic, I think, to see a, small government Southern politician vowing to move to the federal government.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing.
It seems to contradict his message. Let's have a federal program in Kentucky, right?
Yeah, so he knows he can't keep people in Kentucky from using the federal program, but he's promising to shut down Connect, which is, as your listeners know, that's deeply unfortunate, and it also speaks to sort of the very ideological basis of the opposition, because it's really hard to find any metric where Connect hasn't been a really, an inspiring success.
Yeah. I have to ask you a quick question. You're based in New York, right?
Yeah.
All right. So is New York just totally buzzing with all the huge success of Donald Trump on Saturday Night Live?
Not so much. In fact, most of the activity I've seen has been people who were, protesting or upset about it. One of my friends made a joke about how him being on the show has so enraged the Latino members of the cast that they haven't been on SNL in years. But yeah, no. Beyond his usual presence, I can't say that he's got a career as late night comedian in front of him.
No, I think we know that, right? It's kind of a dud. Hey, Elias, so good to connect with you again. Thanks so much. All right.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, great to have you, Elias Isquith from Salon, salon.com.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
We came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
water in there now?
Yeah, go ahead. So this is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiend's yelling at me.
Help me. Your hands. Help me. Your hands.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, dude.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Let's get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy.
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94. There was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends.
Or
I mean, a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else. That we might be faced with. And that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go. In the next hour, Keith Mestrich, who's president of Amalgamated Bank, is going to be joining us. Peter?
You just finished talking to Elias about Donald Trump. We know kind of how he did. The official ratings will come out a little bit later on, but we know he pulled a 6.6 household rating. That is the best. Those are the best numbers that Saturday Night Live have seen since January 7th, 2012. So we'll know exactly what that number was, or have an idea of what that number was. The host, by the way, on January 7th, 2012, any guesses?
Donald Trump.
Charles Barkley, oddly enough.
Wow.
Charles Barkley was
no kidding, huh?
Previous record holder.
Yeah. Well, now we know why SNL invited him.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Oh, yeah.
Now we know why SNL stuck with him, despite all the protests, right? And now we know probably why they'll invite him back.
Yeah.
I hope he's funnier the next time.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people had lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we've took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance right through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed to where we're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished when they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
If the Keystone Pipeline were not dead before, it sure is now. President Obama making it official on Friday, saying it won't create any jobs and it will derail our efforts to do something about climate change. Hello, everybody. With that news, we start off hour number 2 here on this Monday, November 9. Great to see you and good to have you with us as we tackle the big stories of the day, coast to coast here on your local Progressive Talk radio station on those 2 great radio apps, iHeartRadio and TuneIn. Download either one of them. They're free. Stay with us on the radio wherever you travel. Good to see you on television as well, on Free Speech TV in 40 million homes around this country, and also worldwide on our video stream, electronic device, anywhere in the world. You keep up with us on YouTube at youtube.com/TawkrTV. You join our team this morning. You are part of the team led by Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson.
Hello, Bill.
Good morning.
With Ray Rogers on the phones at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Balding, our videographer, keeping us looking good on the video side. Don't know whether you saw, it was kind of a non-event. I think the Democratic Forum down in South Carolina, with all due love and respect to Rachel Maddow, but the candidates were not allowed to mix it up because they'd get in trouble with the DNC. So they just each had their turn at the microphone, and then at the end of each interview, Rachel Maddow gave them the lightning round. Bernie Sanders, he was sure what question he was going to get from Rachel in the lightning round.
How many pair of underwear do I have?
I would never ask. If you care to volunteer the information.
Am I really Larry David?
Nice that Bernie showing a little sense of humor there.
Bernie did a really good job in that forum.
Yeah,
by
he
the
did.
way.
He did.
I think he did a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had a little weakness in that debate, but I think he learned from that and did a good job.
And the next debate, Saturday night. Indeed. We're going to start off here at the top of the hour with Kyle Cheney from Politico, the man who broke the story about Ben Carson's West Point fabrication. We'll also have reporters in from the Hill, and Keith Mestrich, who is the president of Amalgamated Bank, banker with a heart, comes in at the half hour. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Boy, oh boy, if you were on Twitter or if you were in California on Saturday night, you saw what could have possibly been aliens, Bill. Did you see this?
I did.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
people were freaking out. This amazing formation in the sky happened around 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. local in California. And they said that it was visible as far inland as Nevada. Up in the sky, an unexplained object with some very odd light around it. Videos and all of this were surfacing, showing what it looked like. It was nothing that we had ever seen before. But then, of course, the Navy went and ruined it for everybody. They said that they were testing a missile off the coast of California. It was not aliens, if you believe their side of the story.
But I'm not... We live in California. We see aliens all the time.
Yeah, this is not a big deal. Right? It's not a big deal for you guys. We go to New Hampshire, Lebanon, New Hampshire, where they had a time capsule that was unearthed last week. Dated 1944, the capsule was put into a brown whiskey bottle and buried on the grounds of City Hall, right? So they dug it up. The only thing that was in there was a note that said, sadly, there isn't any whiskey inside. I've drank it all. It was the setup to a 71-year punchline that someone put in there. It was put in there by former city surveyor Samuel Stevens, who's no longer with us. And it just said, whoever finds this bottle may keep it. Sorry there's no liquor. I drank it all up.
Sounds like my kind of guy.
My kind of guy,
I like
right?
that
Like,
humor.
you're going to go through a time capsule, 71-year-old joke? I love it, man.
A long walk for a short beer.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And let's talk about college football, because we found out last week the top 4 in college football. They were all in action over the weekend. Clemson, number 1 in the nation, taking on FSU. Florida State squeaked out a win, 23-10 there. Also, Ohio State taking on Minnesota. Well, they won that game, 28-14. They all keep their standings in the top 4. And then, of course, number 2, LSU was taking on number 4, Alabama. Alabama won that game. 30-16 was the final score, so LSU will presumably drop out of the top 4. Alabama will rise.
I know somehow we had to get Alabama.
Oh, you knew I was going to do that story,
somehow,
Bill. Roll Tide, man.
You knew Alabama was going to make it to today's
We
program.
won't play the Ole Miss fight song today.
No, you won't.
No.
Or the LSU fight song.
You're lucky.
That's right.
11 minutes after the hour. Yes, indeed. Dr. Ben Carson under attack on many fronts for maybe wild exaggerations, maybe outright fabrications on the campaign trail. He met with reporters pretty feisty on Friday and defended himself particularly against the allegation that he was never offered a scholarship to West Point.
They were saying you would be a tremendous addition to the military, and we can get you into West Point with a full scholarship. And I simply said, I want to be a doctor. I really appreciate it. I'm very flattered. And I moved on. So it didn't go on any further than that.
What is the truth about West Point? We turn to the man who broke the story exclusively in Politico, Kyle Cheney, reporting last week that Dr. Carson's claim that he was offered a full, that's the phrase he used, a full scholarship to West Point was not true. Kyle Cheney, good to have you with us this morning.
Good to be here, Bill. Thank you.
So was he or was he not offered a full scholarship to West Point?
I mean, you heard from Dr. Carson himself. He was not. He said on several interviews over the weekend and on Friday that he probably should have clarified it a little better, that he was encouraged to apply because if he had, he would likely have gotten in, which is a different story than he'd written in his books, and then in several interviews where he said, yes, he was actually offered that full scholarship.
And this claim that he was offered a full scholarship is a claim that he made more than one time, right?
It's been, he initially made it in his 1990 book, Gifted Hands, which is what he was best known for prior to running for president. But then he's made it many times since in other books, in speeches and interviews, and as recently as on Charlie Rose's show last month. So it's been a regular feature of his conversation.
Just probing this a little bit further, does West Point even offer scholarships?
They don't, and we I think in our piece we sort of make clear that's a technical distinction, because as Dr. Carson points out, look, everyone who goes to West Point gets a free ride because they're obligated to do military service afterward. That's part of the deal. Mm-hmm. So yes, the use of the term full scholarship is technically incorrect, but even West Point has used that in sort of marketing tactics to sort of say, let everyone know, hey, this is free. So there's that aspect, which is sort of more terminology based. But I think the point of our story was to show that he was suggesting he got in to West Point through suggesting the scholarship, but the scholarship was offered to him to be taken.
Yeah. Did he ever apply to West Point?
He did not. He didn't apply to West Point. And when we talked to West Point, they said, look, the only way you get a scholarship offer is if you go through the process. It's a long and rigorous and difficult process to get in, and then you might get an offer. So you don't someone just doesn't talk to you and then the offer happens.
Right. And so he never applied, which means he was never accepted or he was never denied. So back to what he says, it seems to me that what may have happened is when I graduated from high school, I remember somebody said, you ought to maybe go to law school. You'd be You could end up on the Supreme Court. I mean, it wasn't much more than that, was it? Really? Somebody probably said to him, "Man, you ought to think about West Point. You could probably get in."
Yeah, and I think as he's clarified, I think it's the people, it was his ROTC commanders, his JROTC commanders in high school who said you'd be great at this. He was a leader in the school as a student, as an ROTC member, so I think there's no denying that he was a gifted student who had big things ahead of him. So people probably were encouraging to do it, and that you can't say anything about whether he would or would not have gotten in. It's just the difference is that offer never occurred.
Well, of course, he claims now that you and your team at Politico and I'm pleased that your editors are standing by you and standing by the story. Unlike, by the way, CBS News and the movie I saw last week, Truth, about Dan Rather and Mary Mapes.
Right.
So you're standing by your story. But so Ben Carson says you guys are just out to get him, make him look bad, and make Democrats look good. Is that what Politico's all about?
I think there's been a large scale effort to kind of try to discredit the basis of the story, which at its essence is about again whether this offer occurred or didn't, and that's the truth of the story, and we do stand by that. I think what's going on here is you saw a whole series of stories that came out really in the Wall Street Journal and everywhere else, in which question elements of Dr. Carson's narrative, and that's the central narrative that he's running on. And so I think there's you touch a nerve whenever you get at some central aspect of that. And that's why we saw such a fierce response.
Why is this important? Why is this story important, do you believe?
Again, I mean, it's the basis of Dr. Carson's candidacy. It's like, I'm not a traditional politician. I'm, someone who rose and truthfully, rose from difficult circumstances in Detroit and Boston, and became the top of my field in neurosurgery. But it's the other elements of that narrative, his honesty and his integrity, and the things that are associated with that rise that he experienced, that are central to him being an appealing figure on the right and not a traditional politician.
Yeah, we talked about these a little bit earlier. When you add them up, it's pretty stunning. I mean, so it's West Point, right? Then there's a story about his violent temper, which CNN has discredited. The story, the Wall Street Journal looked into, I think, the
psych class.
I'm sorry? The
psychology class.
Oh, the psychology class at Yale, right, where he was voted the most honest, right, with his front page picture on the front page. Earlier, there was the Popeye story, which the Baltimore Police Department says they cannot confirm. And
Popeye's organization.
Popeye's organization, we should say, right? And it goes on and on.
Yeah, his relationship with Manatech, that sort of nutrient company.
Oh yeah,
which became controversial.
That's a good point.
I forgot the Manatech one. Yeah, I mean, again, it's hard to keep track of them all, right? It does speak to. You use the word integrity and honesty and credibility.
Yeah.
Is Politico? I have to ask: are you on another trail now of a Carson fabrication?
No, I mean, I know I'm nothing crazy to blow the lid off of. I think we're still going to continue as to do the work that we do, which is vetting of front running candidates and all candidates really who deserve to be vetted in the way that we do, and so I think despite all the noise surrounding this particular story, we're going to continue to work hard to hold these guys accountable.
What about Carson's claim that Barack Obama was never treated like this? He never got this kind of scrutiny.
I think that I'm not surprised to hear that. I think President Obama would probably laugh at that suggestion. He got pretty thoroughly scrutinized, and many of the stories that they point out that were not scrutinized were things that were written about in the mainstream press very, very frequently. So, it's a little bit of a distraction to say, well, you said this about me, but what about this? You can make that argument if you want, that those things went unexplored or not explored enough, but that's separate and apart from the stories about this particular candidate. Yeah. So they're two different conversations. Right.
Yeah, even if true, it's an excellent point. Even if true, that does not excuse the exaggerations that he has made about his own record. But also, I don't even know that Politico was around actually in 2007. You guys have grown so fast.
It was the first year of the company. I wasn't here then, but
that was the first year of the company. Yeah,
started.
But we certainly remember, and I'm sure if I went back in Politico and looked in the archives, I would see that there was a lot of talk, as there was all across the media, about Bill Ayers, about Jeremiah Wright, about the birth certificate, about all that kind of stuff. Yeah, about the Choom. What's the Choom?
Choom Gang.
The Choom Gang.
Yeah.
Right. And it was the same thing with Bill Clinton back in 1992 as well. Well, you make us all proud, Kyle. Good job as a journalist, and keep.
Appreciate it, Bill.
Don't let Ben Carson scare you away, and keep on it. Not just Ben Carson. Go after all of them. We count on you to do so. Thanks, Kyle.
We'll keep doing the work we're doing. Thanks, Bill.
All right. At Politico.com, Kyle Cheney wrote the story on Ben Carson at West Point. Busted.
Follow us on Twitter at BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use, which is a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. Or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. my human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Help keep all the presidential candidates straight with your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is the Bill Press Show.
Right. If we're the progressive headquarters, Amalgamated Bank is the progressive bank. Keith Mestrich, president of Amalgamated, will be here in studio with us in the next half hour. In the next hour, Adam Smith from Every Voice, and then Niall Stanage from The Hill, associate editor for The Hill. Yes, indeed, watching the cables this morning, the story of Ben Carson, which really is a strange story in that there's such a string of things that he has basically based his entire career on, outside of the brain surgery, over and above. An entire string of claims that he has made, not one of which stands up. Every one of which has been proven to be not true.
Yeah.
So he is dominating the news. He is also getting his share of the stand-up comics. A fellow named Kid Mero, whom I had never heard of before, has a little blog called the Bodega Boys.
Yeah,
right?
Podcast Bodega Boys. It's
podcast,
really fun.
Bodega Boys, and he does if Peter does a great Bernie Sanders, Kid Mero does a mean Ben Carson impression.
Hello, everybody. This is Ben Carson. I'm running for president of the United States. Right now, you're listening to these two men. I guess, they may or may not be Muslim. If they were, I would treat them differently.
The laugh.
I've repaired the brains of several babies. Essentially that means that I'm qualified to do things. Have you ever seen the brain of a giraffe? Clearly you're not qualified to run this country. Have you ever seen the sternum of a penguin? I've repaired several. I went to Botswana and made a brain out of sticks. That means that I can be the president.
That's something he really, truly could possibly say. I could hear him saying that.
I could hear him say that. I never thought I'd hear him say that the pyramids are not what the archaeologists have been telling us they have been.
Right.
Right. But he's got the tone of voice down. He's got the laugh down.
The laugh kills me.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And he's got the total non sequiturs down. It goes on. This is what distinguishes him from anybody else running for president. The next clip, right? We got it? Continuing with Kid Mero.
Well, I'm not here for the jokes. Anyway, let me explain something to you. You in your life of living have never gazed upon the cerebellum and said, I got this? No, you have not. So you are not qualified to make decisions like me.
There you go. All right. But I'm qualified because I was offered a full scholarship at West Point. Not only that, I tried to beat my mother in the head with a hammer.
Yeah, believe me.
So, believe me, I did. And I stabbed a friend of mine, so I'm qualified. Let's talk economics
this
with Keith Mestrich.
Is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold. From the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks.
And 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness.
My beauty.
My power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired.
Tapped.
And tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go at 33 minutes after the hour. It is The Bill Press Show on a Monday, November 9. Coming to you live from Washington, D.C., and brought to you today by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. The good men and women of the Teamsters Union under President Jim Hoffa. We all live better because of their good work. And we salute their many activities on many fronts, especially their big new program to try to get support they've lined up support from the business community and from labor unions to get Congress to pass a good highway transportation bill, which they almost have, under the leadership, again, of President Jim Hoffa. And thank them for the sponsorship of the program. A banker with a heart, that's what we call him. Amalgamated Bank standing out. Unique among banks, in a sense, a bank with a progressive agenda, made even more so last week with the announcement of 5 principles of responsible banking. Keith Mestrich, the president of Amalgamated, good friend, joins us in the studio this morning again. Keith, good to see you.
Good to see you, Bill.
Everything good? Everything in the Is the economy sound, getting stronger? How are we doing?
I think we're getting mixed signals on the economy. We had a really good jobs report on Friday. 270,000 jobs created, blew the cover off what people thought was going to be the estimates.
Big time.
Big time.
Report, right.
It was funny to watch Fox News struggle through the announcement on it. They couldn't quite figure out what they wanted to say.
That video, by the way, is truly amazing. They were completely dumbfounded.
They had the woman on who said that it was well over projections, and then said it was only 270,000 jobs. I mean, it was a great moment. It was a great moment on conservative TV.
Yeah, right. But I think this is 68 months of steady job growth. The president said 13.5 million new jobs, and unemployment at 5%, which is, you tell me, I've always heard that that's basically what economists say.
It's
we can't get any better, right?
Functional full employment, right?
Yeah.
And we're starting to see some inching up in the wage numbers as well. Maybe we're starting to get some real wage growth. That would be the next thing that we have to do.
Why is it taking so long?
Oh, I think technology has probably been the biggest contributor to that, right? Companies can act much more productively. When we had the economic crisis in 2008, what you saw was companies figure out how to do the same amount of work with a lot fewer people, and I think that's put a lot of downward pressure on wages.
But they've succeeded in that, and it's not going to change, right?
If anything, it's only going to get worse.
Right.
And I mean, we are in the middle of a technological revolution. Let's face it, we're about to go technological revolution 2.0 or 3.0. The productivity gains that will come from all manners of using data, of productive machines, robotics, self-driving cars, all the kinds of things that are out there are going to have a pretty profound effect on the economy. We better start dealing with the public policy implications of that now.
Right. So does that mean manufacturing jobs are not coming back?
If the predictions on self-driving cars are true and self-driving cars will replace people-driven cars, I think that's a pretty profound effect on the automobile manufacturing industry, the Teamsters Union, and the trade union community and the policymakers have to start thinking about what that means.
It also has implications, doesn't it, for our educational system, right?
Huge.
I mean, are we turning people out with the skills that are needed for today's job?
I don't think we are. And the technology is going to start replacing some of the basic white-collar jobs that get done, too. My industry, right? More and more transactions are being done by people using self-service things, banking online, banking on their mobile phone. That means a lot fewer tellers, probably more people in some higher level intellectual property kind of jobs, but a lot fewer manual jobs that we're going to have to do. We have to figure out how we're training people for the new economy.
This is not fair, I know, but can I ask you about?
You want a loan or something?
He's going to stop him. Nothing's going to stop him from asking the question.
Can I ask you about my favorite bitch about banking? Okay,
sure.
Is all right. So I just got some money out of the ATM.
Yeah.
Okay. Over the weekend, and it was a $3 service charge. Come on, you can't tell. Now, talk about technology. You can't tell me it costs the bank $3 to process that, and probably on both ends, right?
It costs us something, but most banks are making money on fees. Low interest means bankers have tried to find fees in other places. We have fees as well, but we're trying to look at a lot of our retail fees and think about the fact that people should just have access to their money. Let's do away with as many of those as we can. Let's recover our costs, but think about making money in the way that bankers traditionally have made
because
money.
Because the fees keep going up, right? I mean, I remember when any use of the ATM, at least at your own bank, was free.
Yep.
I think it still is at your own bank.
At our bank, it's free if you use it, and we have a network of 50,000 ATMs around the country that are free as well.
I remember a couple of years ago, Bank of America.
That's my commercial.
But I was going to say, amalgamatedbank.com. That's the time to say it. Yes.
I remember a couple of years ago, there was a bank that was starting to go down the path of charging you to use your debit card, right, to take money out of the, and people just freaked out.
Oh, that was Bank of America.
That was Bank of America, yeah. And they backed down off of it, thankfully. But, that whole idea of making it harder for people to get their money, I don't think it's a winning strategy. I could be wrong, right? Like I'm not in the banking business, but
you mentioned use the phrase interest rates. Now that we are at 5% unemployment and with 68 straight months of jobs, almost inevitable, isn't it, that the Fed's going to raise interest rates?
No, I think so. I think at their December meeting, you'll see a small raise. That'll probably happen. The market's kind of starting to bake that in. The conventional wisdom is that you'll see a small raise, maybe 1/8 of a point or a 1/4 of a point. But I also think while low interest rates have been absolutely critical to the recovery of the economy, the Fed's going to need some tools when we hit the next downturn, and you want to be able to lower interest rates at that time as well. So a little increase, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing.
Right. How is it, for the banking side of the business, the low interest rates? I mean, it must really have did it cut into the profit margin banks make on their loans? Big time, I guess.
Absolutely. Higher interest rates are good for the banking industry.
Yeah, right.
We make a little bit more money on our floating rate adjustable loans when we do that. And the low interest rate economy has led banks to do things like find ways to make money off of fees and that kind of thing. That's been the effect. Now, most of the banks are not suffering too much. If you saw the third quarter earnings of the big banks, every single one of them made more than $4 billion in quarterly profits.
Okay.
So it's not like the biggest of the big banks aren't doing pretty well.
Right. Let's talk. So you got our attention last week when we saw the press release about the 5 new principles that you're proposing for banking. Tell us about them.
So let's face it, Bill. It's the industry that I have the pleasure of working in. The banking industry is not exactly the most popular industry in the country right now. Lost a lot of trust over the last decade. Lost a lot of trust in 2008 when the economy almost cratered, and the industry has done very little to earn back that trust. I wrote to the CEOs of the 100 largest banks in the country last week, and said our bank is adopting 5 principles of banking, and we invite them to do the same.
Lots of luck getting the others to respond.
I hope they do.
But first, tell us the principles, and then we'll talk about the response.
So the first one is we should really structure our industry to empower people. Banking can actually be a real force for good. It's the way that you can provide loans for people to start or empower small businesses. It's how people buy houses. It's how people send their kids to school. Let's get back to figuring out how we do that in a responsible way.
That's what it should be all about, right? Empowering people.
It's not about big-time investment banking. It's not about trading commodities. It's not about figuring out how to rip people off the most. It's about making sure that they can do the things that make their lives a little better. That's the first one.
Yeah, amen.
Second one, trust. We've got to be able to figure out how our customers trust us. Be clear in what we charge them, be clear in what we do, and make sure that providing good savings accounts and good checking accounts is the basic core business of what we do.
If you can't trust your bank, right?
Yeah, who can you trust? Third, regulation is not the enemy. Everybody in the industry wants to beat down on the federal regulators. The basic issue is that the regulators are charged with making sure the system is safe and sound, and we should respect that, and we should partner with them to do that.
You got to have that, right? I mean,
we see what happens when we don't. And
I mean, without the FDIC, how many people would be comfortable parking their money in a bank?
A lot fewer. And regulators are not the enemy. They should actually be our allies. Third, we got to find value in economic justice, right? We should stand up for a fair economy. Our bank raised our minimum wage to $15 an hour.
Right.
Every other bank in the country can do the same. It's the wealthiest, richest industry in the country. We should treat our employees with the kind of respect that we expect for ourselves, and we should advocate for those policies across the country. And fifth, transparency matters. We shouldn't hide behind things. We should tell people how banks make money. We should talk about how we share a portion of that to go back to our economies. We should be in our shareholder activity. We should encourage transparency in terms of political donations and other things. And transparency really matters.
Is this the way banks started with these? I mean, I'm not saying that anybody had exactly these 5 principles, but I mean, as a kid growing up, I remember the bank. My dad had a small business, a gas station, and up in Delaware City, Delaware, and we always considered the banker was our friend.
Bankers were leaders in the community. I grew up in a small town in South Dakota. My dad had a country doctor's practice, and he needed the banker, to be able to help him get through the tough times in his business.
So my dad got his business loan, his house loan. I mean, we knew the bank, we knew them personally, they knew us. I mean, it was.
And there's thousands of community bankers around the country who are still leaders like that. And I think we get we get so caught up in the big guys on Wall Street and the things that they've done that we forget that all across the country there really are small community bankers who do a lot of that. And that's the principles that we're trying to get back to. And we're saying you can do that if you're a small bank or a big bank.
Right. And it's exciting to have a big national bank doing that and putting these principles out there. And that's Amalgamated Bank with Keith Mestrich, the president, here in studio with us. How often do you get to talk to a big banker? Here he is. Keith Mestrich. Amalgamated.com is their website, and you know the number here, 866-55-PRESS.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, it's 12 minutes now before the top of the hour. Adam Smith from Every Voice joins us in studio at the top of the hour to talk about the big money in politics. Right now we're visiting with Keith Mestrich, who is the president and CEO of Amalgamated Bank, amalgamatedbank.com. Last time you were in, Keith, we talked about the minimum wage. You were the first bank to say you were going to pay all of your employees a $15 minimum wage. And I wouldn't say you issued that challenge, but you certainly invited other banks to join the cause.
response?
Well, I'm looking behind me. There's nobody standing behind me yet. But
Come on, line up here, guys.
It's crazy. We talked about this before. Average wage for a teller in this country is $12 an hour. These are people who have a huge amount of responsibility. At most banks, if they are short in the till at the end of the day, they usually get fired. So it's a lot of responsibility. $12 an hour. Live in any major city in this country, you can't do it. And in this industry, right, Bank of America, $4 billion in profit last quarter. You can't tell me they can't figure out how to pay everybody who works for them at least $15.
Right. And I would imagine that whatever they call that gap between what the presidents of the bank are making and the tellers are making is
I forget
pretty wide.
I forget the
right?
exact number. I think in the banking industry, it's something like 270 to 1. I mean, it's some phenomenal ratio.
Good grief.
Now, your letter just went on these 5 principles, but again, you announced them yourself, but you also invited your fellow bankers to adopt the same, right?
Adopt these or adopt similar principles in terms of how they were going to run their business and tell the world about it. I think I think that's the way the industry regains the consumer's trust.
Did you send this out to your customers, your clients, so that they know what you're all about? And
exactly. We've sent that out. We've shared it with all of our employees. We're posting it in all of our branches and in our headquarters so that people can live by these watchwords every day.
When you look at this presidential field, do you have greater or lesser trust in or hope for the economy as to where
I think you got to look at what the candidates from each party has done. If you look at what Bernie or Martin O'Malley or Hillary Clinton have put out, all of them have put out proposals in terms of financial reform. They've all been in favor of retaining Dodd-Frank, which is a great piece of legislation that has kept the economy safe since 2008. They've all been in favor of reforms that have looked at executive compensation and other ways to make sure that we have equality in the system. If you look at all of the candidates on the other side of the ledger, all the Republican candidates, they want to dismantle the regulatory framework, which has kept the country safe. They want the market to control everything. They want to give a lot of big power back to the big banks and big industry in general. And there's a real choice for the American people to make come next November.
What I thought was pretty kind of scary in the last Republican debate, the CNBC debate, right? There was all the talk about, the hostile questions, and some of them were off the wall. But is listening to each of them try to explain their tax plan. I mean, Ben Carson was unable to explain what he had put forth. But the rest of them, and every one of those tax plans, I just pulled it up on my computer here. Huffington Post this morning, the headline is with a photo of Marco Rubio, the tax cut that would destroy the budget, more than 3 times larger than Bush's tax cuts. 34% would go to the top 1%. They don't get it, do they?
They don't get it. Can we? One of the things that we should start to talk about is the great job that President Obama's done in the last 7 years. I mean, he's brought the economy back from the brink of disaster. We have a vibrant economy now.
I can't think of every time during the debate, the Republicans kept talking about how bad the economy is.
I know. Yeah. Right.
No, it's not.
It's not. We're struggling. It's not as vibrant as it could be.
Sure.
But can you imagine what we could do if we had a progressive tax policy in this country where we could, you started the segment talking about the Teamsters and their commitment to infrastructure.
Yeah.
Think what we could do if we actually used a little tax dollars to provide that kind of stimulus for the economy. It would be tremendous. Think what we could do if we could actually use some tax dollars and think about beginning to forgive some student debt in this country. You want economic stimulus?
Yeah.
Give everybody a raise by forgiving some of this outrageous student debt that we have in this country.
Right. Or you say invest in our infrastructure and put Americans back to work instead of taking all of this money and putting it in the hands of the people who are already the top 1% and are doing very, very well, thank you.
And it was those investments in infrastructure throughout the 20th century that made this country a better place to live. It was the investments in the interstate highway system. It was the investments in a national park system. It was the investments in all kinds of things that happened under the New Deal that not just put people to work, made America a better place to live because it was easier to get around. It was more enjoyable on your leisure time. We can do that again. It's not just about using tax dollars to replace crumbling bridges and sewer pipes. What if we took wireless to every corner, high-speed wireless to every corner of this country like we did with electricity? What if we cleaned up blight in our decimated cities? What if we put people to work by making every building, house, office building, et cetera, energy efficient. I mean, there are things that we can do that not only put the last remaining 5% of people back to work, but actually make this a better place to live.
Is it too late for you to run for president?
I think I could get in on the Republican side and have a little bit of an impact.
You'd certainly stand out in that field. All right. Hey, it's so great to see you,
Good to
Keith.
see you,
Thanks
Bill.
for coming
Good to
in.
see you, Peter.
You did a great
Thanks.
job. Amalgamated Bank, amalgamatedbank.com. Check it out. Come back and see us again soon, Keith. Thanks.
Great. Thanks.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, how about it? 2 hours, pretty good so far. Big third hour coming up. You won't want to miss that, so you can watch it on Free Speech at 5 p.m. Eastern. Take a little break, come back, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific. Or you can stay with us on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TawkrTV. Of course, Adam Smith will be in to talk about money in politics. And Niall Stanage from The Hill on what we can expect from new speaker Paul Ryan. All of that coming up, hour number 3 on this Monday, November 9.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves, would you like a bag? What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Talk money and politics with Adam Smith, top of the next hour. Then Niall Stanage from The Hill. President Obama, a big day today, welcoming Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu to the White House. They have their one-on-one meeting starting at 10:30, in the Oval Office. The Vice President will also be there. This afternoon, the President meets with Secretary of State John Kerry. I can't believe he's not going to be there for this morning's meeting, but the schedule doesn't say so. And this afternoon, the President has an event with the Organizing for America people, Organizing for Action people at the St. Regis Hotel. Our press briefing with Josh Ernest at 12:30. That is called Money in Politics. Next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night. And I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this. Because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
President Obama welcomes Bibi Netanyahu, Prime Minister, to the White House today for a little meeting. They will not be holding a joint news conference after the meeting, which I think says something about the relationship between those two men, especially after the Iran nuclear deal. Hello, everybody. I was looking forward to this news conference today. I was all primed to go there. Instead, we're just going to have our regular press briefing with Josh Earnest. Don't take that the wrong way, Josh. I still love you, but I'd rather see the two of them square off. At any rate, it's Monday, November 9. Great to see you today. Thank you for joining us. Good to have you with us. Here we are in our nation's capital, booming out to you all over this great land of ours, northeast, southwest, coast to coast. We're here with you from our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and look forward to hearing from you about the news of the day. Join the conversation at any time by just giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS or sending us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Team Press making it in right to the last man and woman this morning. Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson.
We always like to surprise
sure
you.
On Monday mornings.
We always like to surprise you who's going to be here, who's not.
I know. You never know.
We made it.
Ray Rogers on the phones at 866-55-PRESS and Cyprian Bolding on the video cam on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. And we're going to be talking money in politics here in this first half hour with Adam Smith, who is the communications director for Every Voice. Hello, Adam. Good to see you again.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You know, we complain about all the big money in politics, but there is somebody out there today who is not looking for the big money. He's looking for just small change. Of course, Bernie Sanders, as played by Bernie Sanders, a.k.a. Larry David on Saturday Night Live.
Right.
If you believe in Bernie, I need you to go home, open your closet, pull out your vacuum, dump it upside down, and send me all the pennies that fall out of it. That's right. I'm Bernie Sanders, and I want your vacuum pennies.
Interesting strategy, Senator.
That's what his campaign's based on, Adam, huh?
Yeah,
Vacuum pennies.
That's right. I think it's really funny that's small donations. All Bernie Sanders gets.
And by the way,
pennies.
Yeah.
Just vacuum pennies.
He's gotten a lot of vacuum pennies, too.
He sure is, and I think it's a sign of how excited people are about his campaign, that they're sitting in their vacuum pennies, their $5 donations, their $10 donations.
I think his average is $31 or something.
Something like that.
And he's raised, in the last quarter, he raised $24 million, and Hillary raised $26.
Yeah, and there's something like...
And he's keeping his money in the bank, too. For the
yeah,
most
and
part.
there was this... incredibly high percentage of his donors can give again. It was like 95 or 96 or 97% of donors can give again. there are only so many people who can give $2,700 donations, but a lot more people can keep giving 5, 10, 15 over and over again.
Yeah, great strategy. Again, Adam Smith was for the first half hour. Then Niall Stanage from The Hill joins us. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Chipotle is not having a very good go of it these days. We talked about some big problems they're having up in the Northwest with some E. coli outbreaks in the Chipotes.
Are they still closed?
Yeah, they are still closed, as a matter of fact. And we found out that at the end of last week, the National Labor Relations Board ruled against Chipotle because they fired an employee who participated in the Fight for $15 fast food strike. Remember that?
Yeah.
The strikes for fast food employees were taken off, and they said they want $15. One employee of Chipotle took the day off to go and do that in St. Louis, Missouri, and they fired him for it. They fired him. And the NLRB at the end of last week again said you can't do that. They have got to... you can't fire your employees who do that. So they're going to rehire that worker. He's going to keep his job. He's going to go back and work for Chipotle. But they tried to fight it, and they lost.
I'm sure it'll be a little tense on the job. But
I would think so. Todd Gurley is a football player, plays for the Rams. He's got good hair. He's got long dreadlock, good hair, right? But that worked against him yesterday in a game against the Minnesota Vikings. He caught the ball, and he sort of landed on the ground, just outside of going out of bounds. But you know what did go out of bounds?
No.
His hair.
Oh, no.
His hair.
His hair.
His dreadlocks are so long that they went out of bounds.
That's not fair.
Well, the NFL says that it is. It's the first time they've ever had a call like this, ever. And he was called out of bounds, and he could have gone up and gone even farther, but his hair went out of bounds. That was enough for them to call him out of bounds, and so the play was dead.
But the big thing about the hair in the NFL is that you can pull down a player by his hair.
Yeah.
It's totally legal. Because if it's on his uniform, it's there. It's
part of the jersey, essentially. Yeah. So they said he was out. He was out.
He's going to get a haircut?
He ought to go get a haircut after that, man. And our friend Adam Schiff, congressman from California, announced that he is going to be introducing the ORCA Act. That is the Orca Responsibility and Care Advancement. Get it? ORCA? The ORCA Act, it is a bill that he says will, quote, phase out the captivity of orcas so that their display ends with this generation. This is aimed solely or particularly at SeaWorld because of their orca sort of grounds where they raise them and keep them in captivity their whole life. He says that he thinks this should be the last generation that does that. We should shut them down, not let them breed those orcas in captivity. They should be kept out in the wild. I'll make that bill.
I do too. Good for Adam Schiff. Yeah, absolutely. And now we have Adam Schiff and then Adam Smith.
I know, right? Sorry, guys.
So a little confused there. So Adam, last week ago tomorrow, last Tuesday, there were some local elections around the country.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, progressives didn't have a good night. Not in Virginia, certainly not in Kentucky. But there were a couple of bright spots, right? Seattle and Maine. Tell us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so used to coming here and just providing all these depressing facts and figures. But today I have good news.
I'm not used to you coming in being like good news. This is weird.
we don't have very many people who come in with good news.
That's true.
It's kind of the bad news bill program.
I'll try to help that a little bit.
Yeah.
So there are these two ballot initiatives last Tuesday in Maine and Seattle. And both were approved overwhelmingly that really address the broken campaign finance system. It will make elections in those places fairer, more accountable to people. In Maine, Maine has had a public financing system for its legislative elections for almost 20 years. And because of court decisions like Citizens United and others, it's sort of fallen into disrepair. And last year, a year ago on Election Day, 1,000 volunteers spanned out across the state and collected signatures with this initiative that modernizes the public financing system, makes it viable again. It also adds transparency. Groups that spend money on political ads will have to list their top 3 donors on all those ads. And it increases the fines and penalties. So before in Maine, if you broke the law, if you did something, you broke the election rules, you'd get a minor fine. It was seen the cost of doing business. But now they've really increased it, so it's going to be harder to break the rules. You're going to have to really pay for it. So one with 55% of the vote. It was this broad bipartisan coalition of people, Republicans, Democrats, small business owners, all these people across the state came together to get this thing across the finish line, which was really exciting.
Well,
And
how does it work in the public? How should it work, the
Sure.
public financing in Maine? I mean,
Sure,
does that
originally-
mean that any yahoo who stands up and says, I'm running for governor, gets public financing, taxpayer
Absolutely
dollars?
not. No, absolutely not. So how it originally worked is you had to show a broad basic community support by collecting a set number of $5 qualifying contributions from your district. And so once you showed that support and showed that you had people supporting your campaign, you would receive a grant to fund your campaign. And that worked for years, and there was a trigger fund mechanism where if you were outspent by an opponent or an outside group, you'd receive extra funds. A few years ago, the Supreme Court threw that component out. They said giving someone else more speech harms the other person's speech, which is a weird sort of not surprising coming from the Supreme Court. And so it became less viable. You know, before 80 to 85% of the legislature used it. And Maine is known for having the most blue-collar legislature, right? It's people, they're actually waitresses, farmers, people are actually able to run and win because of the clean election system. So what this does, in addition to the transparency and accountability pieces, it allows candidates to re-qualify. Or once they collect their small contributions and receive the grant, they can then go and raise more small contributions and receive another grant to fund their campaigns. So it'll make sure people can run again. And it'll be paid through closing corporate tax loopholes that the legislature will have to now go in and close. So it's really exciting.
It is exciting for the people, good for the people in Maine. 55%?
Yeah, which is higher than the original margin of the 1996 initiative.
And Seattle.
Seattle is doing this really interesting thing. It's never been done before. It's called democracy vouchers. Every registered voter is going to receive 4 $25 vouchers that they can then give out to qualified candidates for city attorney, city council, and mayor. So every voter becomes a donor.
That's interesting. But it's not your money; it's taxpayer dollars.
Yeah,
right?
and the voters approved a small increase on property taxes to pay for it.
Wow!
It is as anybody who's ever worked with the ballot initiative knows that people don't like to pay more property taxes, but it's this. Voters realized this small investment was really worth it, and it's going to be really interesting. It's going to really broaden the base of donors in the city and make them more reflective of the city as a whole. Well, right now, you can imagine it's the developers, tech industry, and those types usually funding the elections in Seattle.
So, how about other money? Are candidates still able to accept unlimited amounts of other money?
So if you participate in the program, you have to participate and you have to qualify. So not every candidate can collect those contributions. Then once you do that, you agree to contribution limits and you agree to spending limits for your campaign.
And if you do not agree, then you don't get the money. But then you can spend like unlimited amounts of your own money, or you could
Seattle,
super PAC money.
Well, Seattle does have contribution limits for its races, so they are still bound by that. There could always be the threat of outside spending in elections, and there's nothing we can really do about that right now. But it's exciting and that was 63%.
Really
crazy.
Wow.
No, really interesting. It's never been done before, and so
now that's an interesting approach. So that in effect you say every voter becomes a donor. and I have 4 vouchers. So I could give all 4 vouchers to one candidate.
Yep.
Or I could just spread it around, right?
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
$25 contributions.
Yep.
And it increases the donor pool by probably 1,000% or something.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah,
and
right.
it
because normally there's maybe 1 or 2% of voters who are donors.
Yeah, and in Seattle especially, the really wealthy neighborhoods are providing most of the money, and it also encourages candidates to then go knock on doors and go to their neighbors and go to all these people.
I want my voucher.
Yeah, and so they're going to be talking to more people, right? And more regular people who aren't the developers and the city lobbyists and that sort of
Do you
thing.
have any idea how much money that costs the city of Seattle?
I don't think it's going to be as much as people think it's going to be, and it's
Give
going
every voter $100.
Yeah, but not every candidate's going to qualify for the system, or not every candidate will run. Not every voter will give out those contributions.
Yeah,
and
what if they don't give them out? They don't get the money.
No, nothing. No.
Oh, okay.
And there are spending limits on the candidates who qualify for the campaigns. But I think one of the while this is good for people in Maine, people in Seattle, it's good for the voters there. It also, I think, is a sign to the people in the rest of the country that there actually there are things that we can do to fight back. I think nationally, people are so cynical about politics, and I think money in politics plays a really big role in that. And what's really important for people to know is that change is possible. They don't just have to throw up their hands. And I think that these Maine and Seattle wins are going to be momentum building going forward.
The question that I have, and I'm sure some of you do too, is whether that Seattle system could apply statewide or nationwide even. Let's talk about it. Give us a call, 866-55-PRESS. No better expert than Adam Smith in studio with us from Every Voice. It's everyvoice.org, and we'll be right back.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1,000,000. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
25 minutes after the hour, new leadership in the House of Representatives. What does it all mean? What can we expect from Congress for the rest of the year? Niall Stanage has the answers from the Hill. Joins us in the next half hour. Adam Smith, money man from Every Voice, everyvoice.org, fighting for campaign finance reform all across the country with two big wins under their belt after last Tuesday in Maine and in Seattle. Could you do something like democracy vouchers that Seattle has done statewide?
Maybe, yeah.
Costs a lot of money.
We have to try, and I think that what's the difference in the policy there in between Maine and Seattle also shows that there are innovative ways to fund our elections in different ways. Whether it's matching funds like in New York City or through the Government by the People Act that's been introduced in Congress, or the grant system in Maine or democracy vouchers in Seattle. You have to figure out what works best for the state or city that you're working at. It could be maybe you get rebates for small donations that has existed in the past, but whatever works best and whatever can give regular voters a bigger voice in politics.
So the success of these local measures does it mean that the chances of getting anything at the national level are slimmer and slimmer?
No, I think that what we have to do is build momentum at the state level. What we're
maybe
looking
just the opposite. More states.
And sort of just build this momentum around the country. We're looking at maybe 4 to 6 ballot initiatives next year in different places on various policies.
Yeah, if it works in Seattle, it could work in Philadelphia, maybe.
I'm not going to break news here with where we're looking at, but I do think that these help build momentum, and if you can show people that change is possible, they will. That's going to be good. They don't, and they think that Congress is broken, the government is sold off, and you have to sort of push back against that cynicism, and these wins are the way to do that.
After Bush v. Gore, Citizens United is definitely the worst decision ever by this Supreme Court for sure. Any chance of overturning it?
Well, I think that is absolutely that's a long-term strategy. I think that all the things that are happening, that passing the Citizens United resolutions in the states and in towns are all helpful in building that momentum. I think these wins are helpful. I think they all sort of work together. It might not happen in the next few years, but I think it will happen. Like Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, she believes it'll be overturned, and I will listen to whatever she has.
Yeah, I was going to say, if she says it, you have no choice but to believe it.
Yeah. Well, I hope we're still alive, and I hope she's still alive when
That's
it
right.
is overturned.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's just really People have lost a lot of confidence in the American electoral system because of that. Hey, Adam, you guys are doing great work. Congratulations on your big wins.
Thank you.
Here's to many more.
Thank you.
All right, back with Niall Stanage from the
This
Hill.
is the Bill Press Show.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada. What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, here we go. 33 minutes after the hour now. It is the Bill Press Show. We are in Washington, D.C., and we are brought to you today by the United Steelworkers and their international president, Leo Gerard. The United Steelworkers North America's largest industrial union, with over 1.2 million active and retired members, working hard to protect America's manufacturing jobs and to bring some of them back. Check out their website at usw.org. And we thank them for their sponsorship of the program. We've got, it's going to be a busy political week with the next fourth, actually, Republican debate tomorrow night, and the second Democratic debate Saturday night. Hard to keep track of them. And we are today 364 days away from Election Day 2016. Niall Stanage, associate editor of The Hill, has been following the 2016 fun and joins us in studio. Hello, Niles.
Hi, Bill.
Niall, I'm sorry. Nice to see you.
And likewise.
Before we get to the debates, the man of the moment seems to be Ben Carson, who is he's very busy these days, responding to allegations of maybe not telling the truth on many, many different fronts, not just about West Point. But here Friday is what Carson thinks about his critics.
They have been talking to everybody I've ever known, everybody I've ever seen. There's got to be a scandal. There's got to be some nurse he's having an affair with. There's got to be something. They are getting desperate.
By the way, I didn't know he could go up to such a high range when he talked.
Yeah, I know.
There gotta be something.
So are his critics getting desperate, or are they onto something now?
Well, I mean, obviously, the difficulty that he faces is that there have been pretty serious questions raised about a number of stories that he has told. The West Point thing, as you say, is only one of them. There are several others, including this. I mean, part of his whole narrative is this idea that he was redeemed from a sort of rather tempestuous and sort of semi-violent youth, and that has now been cast into question. He's obviously making use of the whole idea that the liberal media are against him, and that tends to be a popular claim to make in Republican circles, but whether it'll be enough in this case is not a matter.
It's a popular claim in Republican circles, and it has worked. Marco Rubio used it, Ted Cruz used it in the last debate and everything. But for the Republican Party, at some point, don't Republicans have to look at Ben Carson as their possible nominee? And if you add them up, right, if I can remember them all, when apparently he has not told the truth about either West Point or the Popeye shooting incident in Baltimore, or the stabbing of his friend, or the hitting his mother in the head with a hammer, or protecting some white students from the riots, or the Manatech drug supplement thing that he takes. What else, Peter? I don't know. There are others I can't even remember right now. They've got to look at him and say, wait a minute, this guy, there's so much here that we cannot run the risk of having him as a nominee.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that is one of the major claims or weights against Carson. And in fact, for a story I was writing a week or so ago, one of the Republican consultants I spoke to said, everyone thinks Ben Carson's a nice guy, but no one says that man is the most prepared candidate we have to go against Hillary Clinton, who obviously is the dominant frontrunner. No one says that, and that is a big problem for Carson.
It's not that it's just like Politico is out to get him, which might, if it were one outlet. So Politico broke the West Point story. The Wall Street Journal broke the Yale Daily News story. CNN broke the no violent temper. They couldn't find anybody who back to elementary school that was around Ben Carson at the time who remembers anything at all about any fights, or not even a fist fight, right? So it's pretty much across the board that he's been discredited on these things. And do you think he survives?
I think he survives, but I do think that it sharpens the questions that are surrounding him. I mean, obviously he has risen to first place, partly because I think he's seen as a more affable version of the kind of anti-establishment outsider thing that Donald Trump has. But the extent to which that sustains, I think, is very open to question, particularly as the first actual contest.
All right, so let's talk. Let's start tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, the Republican debate with a change of characters. We know that Chris Christie and Mike Huckabee have been relegated to the kiddies table, right, from the main stage,
right,
which leaves eight on the main stage, right? And Lindsey Graham and George Pataki, as well as Jim Gilmore, have been dropped entirely.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, which makes it rather difficult. I mean, it doesn't automatically or immediately kill their campaign, but if you're not even being invited to the kiddies table, as you slightly mischievously call it, I think that makes it very difficult. You know, everyone needs some elementary level of fundraising in order to sustain any kind of campaign. And if you're not even in the minor leagues, so to speak, then that's difficult.
So we still would have Christie and Huckabee.
Yes.
Plus, I'm just trying to remember, that would be then Santorum, Jindal, not Pateki. Rand Paul's on the big stage.
Yeah.
Oh, and Kasich is on the big stage too, right?
It's usually Santorum, Jindal, Lindsay, and Pataki. So if Lindsay and Pataki aren't there.
So now it'll be Santorum, Jindal, Christie, and Huckabee?
Yes, I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It'll be an interesting debate.
Who are we forgetting? No.
I think that's it. I really do. I think that's it for that kitty debate.
So it seems to me that this debate is really going to shake things out, right? I mean, we may not have a kiddies table again, right, after this.
Yeah,
or
I mean,
JV debate, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, I actually am not entirely clear what the rules of that are. I think they are set by each network. Each network decides.
Oh, they are. Yeah.
So that,
I mean, basically, both parties have allowed the networks to decide who the candidates are and who they're not, who's serious and who's not, which raises an entire question in my mind.
Sure.
About what. So why do we even bother voting?
Right.
Let's just have the networks decide who's the next president. I mean, that's kind of what this implies.
Yeah.
Not one vote has been cast.
Right.
And already some candidates have been cast out.
Right.
By the networks.
Right.
Not by voters.
No, absolutely. It really is a very dramatic manifestation of what happens or what has happened in recent election cycles, where, you know, the media writ large and you know, political insiders determine who's a serious candidate and who is not. And of course, in previous cycles, people have been wrong about that, as they were wrong about, say, Rick Santorum 4 years ago became, you know, a very serious
He won
challenger.
the Iowa caucus.
He did, and became Mitt Romney's really most serious challenger for the Republican nomination. So that process is inherently flawed. In saying all that, I think we began this year with either 17 or 18 Republican candidates.
17, yeah.
And there is just, you know, just on a practical basis, it's very difficult to work out how you have any kind of compelling broadcasting event with 17 people.
I think we're down to 5 or 6 at the most after this debate. To what extent do you think Ben Carson will be challenged in this debate?
I would expect him to be challenged quite strongly by the moderators. One of the interesting questions about Carson...
This is Fox Business.
It is,
so
yes.
It's Neil Cavuto and I don't know who else.
I think it's Maria Bartiromo, I believe.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I would expect...
No, Don Imus? No,
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Not really his crowd, so to speak. But I think that Carson will likely be challenged by the moderators. Other candidates have taken a somewhat gentle, for want of a better word, attitude to Ben Carson in some debates. There are some signs that is changing in the Sunday shows. Yesterday, Donald Trump was...
I was just going to say, Donald Trump hasn't been so gentle.
No, he was in a rather Trumpian fashion, drawing attention to various less flattering elements of Ben Carson's biography or candidacy. So Trump could go at him, but other people, I think, cognizant of his very, very high favourable ratings among Republican voters, have been reluctant to attack him as frontally as they have attacked other contenders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I can see what's going to happen. They're going to ask him some tough questions, and he's going to come right back and say, there you go again. It's the media ganging up on me, and you know, boom, boom, boom. And that'll either play or it doesn't. And a lot of it will depend on if the other candidates just stand there and let him use that line.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it brings back to my mind, again, going back 4 years ago.
John Kasich might not.
Right. No, Kasich might take a different view. 4 years ago, you might remember there was a debate where Newt Gingrich at the very start lambasted the media in very aggressive fashion, and no one else disagreed with him, and it did him a lot of good. As I recall, the next debate was a rather different story, and those punches did not land so effectively or without challenge.
Yeah. And then we have the Democratic debate with just 3 left on Saturday, and we saw a little warm-up to that Friday evening on MSNBC. Talking about all of that with Niall Stanage and with you, Niall Stanage, Associate Editor of The Hill at thehill.com. Join the conversation at 866-55-PRESS.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment, and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, how about it? 13 minutes before the top of the hour, Monday, November 9. In studio with us, Niall Stanage, Associate Editor of The Hill. I'll be down at the White House a little bit later this morning, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from Israel will be meeting with President Obama. Niall, I think it's very interesting that the two of them are not going to hold a joint news conference today.
Well, I would never describe the personal chemistry between the two of them as overly affectionate, put it that way.
I think the fact that they have not scheduled a news conference is a good indication of that they know that it would be. It could be a disaster.
It's
right?
It's pretty remarkable. I mean, I don't recall two major world leaders who are ostensibly allies who so obviously just don't like each other. It's kind of amazing.
No. And it is personal chemistry. I mean, Obama has done, and maybe a weak moment, Netanyahu has even made this, has admitted that Obama has done more for Israel than any other American president.
Right.
And yet,
they just don't like each other.
They don't like each other. Right. And then Netanyahu comes and gives an address to a joint session of Congress, basically attacking the president, accusing him of being soft on terrorism, and you could see why President Obama didn't particularly appreciate that. So I guess they have some fence mending to do, and if they stood up in front of a pack of reporters today, it would be hard to make sure that every word were.
It probably wouldn't help. Although I believe Netanyahu, we had a story over the weekend in the Hill about him trying to mend fences with people left of centre. So he is appearing at the
Center for American Progress,
which is a liberal think tank
on Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Giving a speech there, sort of. So he's maybe going out of his way there. So Friday night was the Democratic Forum, not a debate, in South Carolina with Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, with Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and Martin O'Malley, each being interviewed separately. And Martin O'Malley took the occasion to swipe at both Bernie and Hillary.
I think that when President Obama was running for re-election, I was glad to step up and work very hard for him while Senator Sanders was trying to find someone to primary him. I am a Democrat. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I'm not a former independent. I'm not a former Republican. I believe in the party of Franklin Roosevelt, the party of John F. Kennedy. I believe that we're all in this together and we can make a better future. And that's why I'm running for our party's nomination.
So, of course, Hillary at one time, long time ago, was a young Republican. Bernie, of course, an independent. Bernie denies that he ever tried to get anybody to primary Obama, and I think he's right about that. I certainly never heard it about, and I would have heard about that.
But that type of move might see O'Malley surge to even maybe 3 points.
Well, this is the thing. When Martin O'Malley says, I believe, do people believe in him? I mean, there's no real sign that the polls
I was going to say, it really is Bernie and Hillary, isn't it?
It is, yeah, absolutely.
And the League of Conservation Voters today, the first time ever that they have endorsed a candidate before there's a nominee of the party. They are endorsing Hillary Clinton today. Is it all over for Bernie?
I don't think it's all over, but certainly Hillary Clinton has had a very good few weeks.
She's had a good, month, huh?
She has, yeah, absolutely. Really, the first debate in Vegas was a big turning point, I think. It's also interesting, I know people criticize the coverage of politics like sports, and that's a fair point. But sometimes there is a thing where momentum kind of changes in election races the way it does in sporting contests. And I was just struck at the forum that we're discussing how much more confident and at ease she seemed than she did even a month ago when she was on the defensive about the emails. Poll ratings were declining and all of that. She seemed a lot more comfortable. And Bernie, in my view, is still having difficulty getting out from under the gun issue, which is the one issue where Hillary Clinton can plausibly portray herself as having consistently been to his left. And he still doesn't have a brilliant answer to that, in my view.
I applaud her stand on the gun issue. Is it too risky in the general election for a Democrat? No Democrat, even Barack Obama, has ever gone as far as she has in terms of taking on the NRA.
Yeah, it's a great question, and she is clearly depending upon the idea that the country has moved to some extent. Now, not to, obviously, an extent of saying we're going to ban all weapons and we're going to,
Which she's not saying.
Which she's not saying. But she is basing or premising her position on the idea that after all these horrendous massacres that we've had, that people are willing to countenance some degree of greater gun control. We shall see. I mean, certainly the NRA will be deploying many, many millions of dollars against her, I'm sure.
Right. There are rumors that that Bernie needs to be a little more he's refrained from any personal attacks against Hillary, and I know some people are telling him, "Look, you got to take her on. You got to bring her down. That's the only way you're going to win." Do you agree that he has to do that, and does he have the Constitution to do it?
Well, I think that one of the key questions is how he's going to shift on this email question.
Yeah.
At the first debate, he was seen as giving her a pass on that by a very well-known exchange. He has sort of retreated slightly from that position and said that it is a valid issue for inquiry. I think that is the kind of thing that he can do and does have the willingness to do. A really direct personal attack on her, I don't think is in his makeup, and I also don't think, frankly, would do him any good either.
All right. Niall, what an interesting time we live in, and we're living through, and it's fun to do it with you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Always a pleasure.
You can always find Niall's good work and all the rest of our good friends at The Hill, at thehill.com. Parting shot coming up next.
Your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is The Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, what do you say? Good morning. Great to see you this morning. This is the Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., bringing you up to date on all the news of the day, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Events in the nation's capital. Hi, everybody. It's Bill Press. This year marks the 10th anniversary of doing the Bill Press Show, every day covering the news of the day with the nation's top newsmakers, either on the line or in our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Not only that, I go to the White House briefings every day to get answers to the top questions of the day. Bottom line, if it's happening in Washington, D.C., either at the White House or the Capitol, we are all over it. Every day, we welcome to our studio political leaders and reporters and labor leaders and newsmakers to help us understand the issues of the day. You know, we started out as a radio show only, but over the years, we have branched out to all forms of the new media. So today, we're not just a radio show. We are podcasting, streaming audio, streaming video, and we are simulcast live on Free Speech TV nationwide. Reaching out to 40 million households on Free Speech TV, in addition to hundreds of thousands on local radio stations and online.
AFGE is so proud to be associated with this show and looks forward to being working with Bill and this show for a long time.
Bill Press is the right man at the right time with the right message.
And thanks to the Bill Press Show, we get our message out to thousands and thousands of people every day. Thank you, Bill Press.
The Teamsters are a proud partner with Bill Press on his show, telling the truth about what's going on with working families. Tune in.
Yes, it's been a fun and exciting 10 years so far for the Bill Press Show. We're looking forward to many more with all of you, broadcasting live every morning from the nation's capital.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show. The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is The Bill Press Show.
Well, it came as no surprise, but it was welcome news nonetheless. President Obama's announcement Friday afternoon denying approval of the Keystone pipeline. Actually, it turned out to be rather anticlimactic, since TransCanada, backer of the pipeline, just 2 days earlier asked the State Department to suspend its review of the project. But, the pipeline was bad news from the beginning. First of all, it was a Canadian company seeking a permit to pump its sludge all across the United States because they couldn't get a permit in Canada. Second, they would have crossed 11 states with considerable environmental damage, only to produce gasoline that was going to be exported to Japan anyway. And third, in the end, it would create only some 50 permanent jobs, hardly worth the effort. The Keystone Pipeline is dead. One more nail in the coffin of the fossil fuel economy. That's my parting shot for today, folks. Go out and have a great Monday, and then come on back and see us again tomorrow. We'll be looking for you.
This is the Bill Press Show.